It's slow English. Time to brush up your English listening skills with a story read at a slower pace. Today's story is called The Boat Girl Bride. Now, the next part. Another year passed away, and he went again to Qingqiang, where lived an official named Su, who was an old friend of the family, and who invited Wang to come and take a cup of wine with him. On his way thither, Wang lost his way, but at length reached a village which seemed familiar to him, and which he soon found, by the door with the magnolia inside, to be identical in every particular with the village of his dream. He went in through the doorway, and there was everything as he had seen it in his dream, even to the boat girl herself. She jumped up on his arrival, and, shutting the door in his face, asked what his business was there. Wang inquired if she had forgotten about the bracelet, and went on to tell her how long he had been searching for her, and how, at last, she had been revealed to him in a dream. The girl then begged to know his name and family, and when she heard who he was, she asked what a gentleman like himself could want with a poor boat girl like her, as he must have a wife of his own. "But for you," replied Wang, "I should indeed have been married long ago." Upon which, the girl told him if that was really the case, he had better apply to her parents. "Although," added she, "they have already refused a great many offers for me. The bracelet you gave me is here, but my father and mother are just now away from home. They will be back shortly. You go away now and engage a matchmaker, when I dare say it will be all right if the proper formalities are observed." Wang then retired, the girl calling after him to remember that her name was Meng Yun, and her father's Meng Qiang Li. He proceeded at once on his way to Mr. Su's, and after that sought out his intended father-in-law, telling him who he was, and offering him, at the same time, 100 ounces of silver as betrothal money for his daughter. "She is already promised," replied the old man, upon which Wang declared he had been making careful inquiries and had heard, on all sides, that the young lady was not engaged, winding up by begging to know what objection there was to his suit. "I have just promised her," answered her father, "and I cannot possibly break my word." So Wang went away, deeply mortified, not knowing whether to believe it or not. And the story continues very soon.
MI Radio, the peace and love music station.
Now, the next part of the story. That night, He tossed about a good deal, and next morning, braving the ridicule with which he imagined his friend would view his wished-for alliance with a boat girl, he went off to Mr. Sue and told him all about it. "Why didn't you consult me before?" cried Mr. Sue. "Her father is a connection of mine." Wang then went on to give fuller particulars, which his friend interrupted by saying, "Chung Li is indeed poor, but he has never been a boatman. Are you sure you are not making a mistake?" He then sent off his elder son to make inquiries, and to him the girl's father said, "Poor I am, but I don't sell my daughter. Your friend imagined that I should be tempted by the sight of his money to forego the usual ceremonies, and so I won't have anything to do with him. But if your father desires this match, and everything is in proper order, I will just go in and consult with my daughter and see if she is willing." He then retired for a few minutes, and when he came back he raised his hands in congratulation, saying, "Everything is as you wish." Whereupon a day was fixed, and the young man went home to report to his father. Wang now sent off betrothal presents with the usual formalities, and took up his abode with his friend, Mr. Sue, until the marriage was solemnized, 3 days after which he bade adieu to his father-in-law and started on his way northwards. In the evening, as they were sitting on the boat together, Wang said to his wife, "When I first met you near this spot, I fancied you were not of the ordinary boating class. Where were you then going?" "I was going to visit my uncle," she replied. "We are not a wealthy family, you know, but we don't want anything through an improper channel. And I couldn't help smiling at the great eyes you were making at me, all the time trying to tempt me with money. But when I heard you speak, I knew at once you were a man of refinement, though I guessed you were a bit of a rake, and so I hid your bracelet and saved you from the wrath of my father." "And yet," replied Wang, "you have fallen into my snare after all," adding, after a little pressure, "for I can't conceal from you much longer the fact that I have already a wife belonging to a high official family." Oh dear, what's going to happen next? We'll find out in the next part of the story very soon.
MI Radio. Hear it. Feel it. Love it.
Now the next part of our story. This she did not believe until he began to affirm it seriously, and then she jumped up and ran out of the cabin. Wang followed at once, but before he could reach her, she was already in the river, whereupon he shouted out to boats to come to their assistance, causing quite a commotion all round about. But nothing was to be seen in the river, save only the reflection of the stars shining brightly on the water. All night long, Wang went sorrowfully up and down and offered a high reward for the body, which, however, was not forthcoming. So he went home in despair, and then, fearing lest his father-in-law should come to visit his daughter, he started on a visit to a connection of his, who had an appointment in Honan. In the course of a year or two, when on his homeward journey he chanced to be detained by bad weather at a roadside inn of rather cleaner appearance than usual, within he saw an old woman playing with a child which, as soon as he entered, held out its arms to him to be taken. Wang took the child on his knee, and there it remained, refusing to go back to its nurse, and when the rain had stopped, and Wang was getting ready to go, the child cried out, "Papa, gone!" The nurse told it to hold its tongue, and, at the same moment, out from behind the screen came Wang's long-lost wife. "You bad fellow," said she, "what am I to do with this?" pointing to the child. And then Wang knew that the boy was his own son. He was much affected, and swore by the sun that the words he had uttered had been uttered in jest, and by his wife's anger was soothed. She then explained how she had been picked up by a passing boat, the occupant of which was the owner of the house they were in, a man of 60 years of age, who had no children of his own, and who kindly adopted her. She also told him how she had had several offers of marriage, all of which she had refused, and how her child was born, and that she had called him Che Shang, and that he was then a year old. Wang now unpacked his baggage again, and went in to see the old gentleman and his wife, whom he treated as if they had actually been his wife's parents. A few days afterwards, they all set off together towards Wang's home, where they found his wife's real father awaiting them. He had been there more than 2 months, and had been considerably disconcerted by the mysterious remarks of Wang's servants. But the arrival of his daughter and her husband made things all smooth again, and when they told him what had happened, he understood the demeanour of the servants, which had seemed so strange to him at first. And that's where the story ends. This is Slow English.
Am I ready?